All right, SI 2022 group stage day number 4, the penultimate day of the group stage. The buys for the day were Damwon Kia, Furia, Sandbox, and Rogue, so we'll see the other 16 teams partaking. And we just have one more day coming up, so 4 of the teams that play today, their buy day will be tomorrow, so this will be their last game in the group stage. And well, stay tuned. One of those teams, it will be, in fact, their last game in the tournament, actually. And I'm going to try to make this video a little bit shorter than the previous one, and the operative word there being try. We'll see if I'm actually successful, but I'm going to do my best. Also, I'm going to show the group standings at the end of all of the games rather than after I show the games from each group. And all right, let's get into that first game. Team 1 versus Oxygen. The community was almost evenly split on this one, but favored Team 1 just a little bit, which is maybe a little bit surprising given what we've seen in the tournament thus far. Team 1 lost to Damwon, and so did Oxygen, but Team 1 also lost to MIBR, which Oxygen has yet to play, and Oxygen kind of destroyed Navi, which gave Team 1 a little bit of a run for their money. Team 1 still ended up beating them, but it was pretty close, and Oxygen, it was not close. So we've seen Team 1 lose twice, and Oxygen only lose once, and Oxygen's one win was more decisive than Team 1's win against that same team. But if we just look at recent international results, after SI, Oxygen doesn't really have any results. They went to one of the majors and got last place because, well, you know, not playing with their full 5, but still. And Team 1 won one of the majors and made it to the quarterfinals of the other major. So maybe that accounts for the 50-50 split. Okay, let's look at the maps. 8-7, 7-5, 7-3. So it looks pretty close except for the last map. And this was another one of those series that went all 3. And it very well could have ended 2-0. I mean, just one round went differently here, and Oxygen would have won the series 2-0. And they probably should have. Let's look at the rounds. We see Oxygen get 4 in a row to start out the map, and then Team 1 finally takes one off the back of a 1v2 clutch, and Oxygen takes the next round. So had they not been clutched on here, they would have gone up 6-0 and would have won the map, because, of course, if you go to overtime, if you had only won one more round in regulation, then you win the map. So that's gonna be haunting them. And then, of course, because they go to overtime, Team 1 gets 5 in a row, or not 5 in a row, but they go 5-1 on their attacking app as well. So they get 3 in a row here, Oxygen gets 1, and then Team 1 gets 2 more to take it to overtime. And then Team 1 wins the first one, Oxygen wins the second one, and then the last one, KDS gets a 4K to secure the map for Team 1. So yeah, I don't know, if things had gone a little bit differently in just any of the rounds, and especially in the one round where they got clutched on, then Oxygen would have won the first map, and then they would have won the second map as well. They would have walked away 2-0. And they wouldn't have got to get trounced on bank, but things happen. So, and then we go here. Oxygen gets off to a good start, 2 in a row, but I mean, you know, what's going to happen? They're only going to get one more round. Team 1, Team 1, Team 1, Team 1, Team 1, Team 1, 6 in a row. Finally, Oxygen stops the bleeding. But in round 10, finally, Team 1 secures the map 7-3, secures the series 2-1. They definitely would have liked to have won 2-0, but given how close, given what happened in the other maps, I mean, they're probably happy to just get that 2-1 at the end of it. So a disappointing group stage performance by Team 1 overall. They have already played all 4 of their games, whereas everyone else in their group needs to play one more game, and they're on the same number of points as Oxygen and Navi, and MIBR is only 1 point behind them with the head-to-head. So it's looking pretty scary for Team 1, and we'll look at that at the end. Looking at the stats, KDS on top, Alamau second place, you know, usually not far from the top. Legonis back on the bottom, and then Levy and Neskin doing all right. And Laxing on top for his team, with Yaga Kino around even, and then Foxay and Vertical, you know, a little bit behind them. So absolute heartbreaker for Oxygen, and let's move on to the next series. MIBR versus Navi, and this one actually ends up with a perfect 50% for each team community prediction. And well, Navi actually takes this one 2-0. It's a slightly closer community prediction, but a less close series. So, I mean, maybe I was talking too much shit about Navi. I mean, they took a solid 2-0 win over MIBR, and MIBR beat Team 1, and Team 1 beat Navi. So there's this little triangle going on, and well, the only non-2-0 there was the win over Navi by Team 1. So even the worst team in that little triangle there is Team 1 in terms of strictly talking about the triangle. Anyways, so let's check it out. And I guess just maybe MIBR doesn't have that many fans that vote, and UK Massive does have a bunch of fans, but at this point, Navi was 0-2, right? And MIBR was 1-1, so you would have thought there would have been more voters for MIBR, but Not the case. 7-5 and 8-7, so pretty close, but still MIBR didn't manage to take a map. And let's check this out. Navi, MIBR, MIBR, and then we see a lot of rounds in a row by Navi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row, and then MIBR. Is this match point at this point? It is, right? Because Navi, yeah. So they're already on match point after just round 8. So MIBR needs to win all these rounds to stay alive. 1, 2, 3. They're running it up, but then they cannot manage to take it to overtime. They lose at 7-5 at the end of regulation. And then if we look at Chalet here, MIBR gets off to a little bit of a hot start with a win. We saw a lot of defensive side at Chalet, which is usually against the norm. Maybe that's just how that map is transitioning in the meta, which is a little bit weird because a lot of the defender-sided maps are going attacker-sided. So, I mean, you would think that attacker-sided maps would remain attacker-sided or get even more so, but not the case. Yeah, 5-1 half by MIBR on the defense. So it seems like they just shouldn't have a chance. Navi, that is, if they lost all of these attack rounds on this attacker-favored map. But when we look at the map stats at the end of the day, it's no longer attacker-sided for the event after this and another game we'll look at pretty soon. So yeah, as you might predict, Navi has to win a lot of rounds to stay alive, and they do. They win 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they lose one, and then they win one. So going to overtime, and then MIBR, but then Navi closes it out with 2 in a row. So that keeps this group extremely competitive, and it is, at this point, I think the closest group of all of the groups. Damwon Kia is already secured first, but all of the other places are heavily in flux. I think 3 of the teams can get any of those 4 positions, and then one of the teams can only get 3, and well, we'll talk about that at the end. And then looking at the stats, Philippox continues to be pretty good for Team 1, and then Reduc does all right as well. And then over here, Doki goes absolutely crazy. Only one going positive on his team in terms of kills and in terms of rating as well. Good entry. Solid performance by him. Definitely got his team over the line, and this is exactly what they needed to stay alive in this tournament. Let's take a look at the next game. Ninjas in Pajamas versus Sonics. Almost 3/4 of voters thought that Ninjas in Pajamas would take this series, and they were correct. But it's a little bit weird of a prediction to make by some accounts. So these two teams played at the Sweden Major. They were in the same group, so they played 2 best-of-1s against each other. Ninjas in Pajamas did take both of them. It was a 7-2 and a 7-5, so again, they took them both, but Sonics fared better in the second one, so they were improving in the matchup, I suppose. And if we look at just the results of this tournament so far, Sonics' record is better. They were both on 4 points, but Ninjas in Pajamas had played a whole other best-of-3, so both of them had a 2-0 win, both of them had a 2-1 loss, that got them 4 points, but Ninja Pajamas also has a 2-0 loss, which got them no additional points, putting them on the same number of points despite not having played the same number of series. So based on history, Ninjas in Pajamas, based on the tournament thus far, Sonics, and also Sonics were coming in off of a win in the previous day, a 2-0 win, and Ninjas in Pajamas coming in on the back of a 2-0 loss versus Team Empire having beaten both of these teams. And the games themselves were close, even though it was a 2-0. As you can see, we went to overtime both times, not all 15 rounds, but 14 rounds, still a very close competition. In the first one, Sonics got 3 rounds in a row to start off, and then Ninjas in Pajamas answered back with 2, one more for Sonics. And so 4-2 half defense on Coastline, pretty good. So it seems like Sonics were in the driver's seat. They take another one going up 5-2, but then Ninjas get 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row to bring it to match point in favor of Ninjas, and then Sonics get 1 more to go to overtime, and then Ninjas take both of the overtime rounds. And then looking at Clubhouse, which is generally a pretty good map for both of these teams, and I'd say Coastline is too. Both of these maps are pretty favored for each team. I think that Sonics, although they are pretty good on Coastline, have had several heartbreakers on Coastline though in relatively recent times, and including at this tournament. So on Clubhouse, round by round, Ninjas, Sonics running it up, but then 2 answered back. So a 3-3 half could go either way. Clubhouse traditionally defender-sided, but it's been attacker-sided at this event. And then Ninjas, Sonics, Ninjas, Sonics going to overtime, and Ninjas in Pajamas just take 2 more rounds again. So once more, double 8-6s. And if we look at the stats, it's not Grixer on top this time. He's still pretty high up here, but Rexon takes the cake for his team. And then Ninjas in Pajamas, Pino was their top performer, with Kamikaze doing pretty well as well. And then everybody else a decent bit behind, but still playing their roles, doing their part. And right, let's move on to the next match. Eminem versus Empire. Most of the people thought that Empire would take it, and based on the way that Empire had been playing, despite their a little bit of a handicap of 2 of their players having to play isolated from the other players, it makes sense, the 80%, but M takes it in the end. 2 European teams going head to head. Empire, one of the juggernauts historically of Europe, and a new challenger in M recently promoted to EUL. M takes it 2-0, a little bit of a surprise. A 7-5, then a 7-1, just not even close. 7-5 on Oregon, you think, oh yeah, maybe we'll have another 7-5, another overtime, whatever it is, especially because Empire's been really good on Coastline. They've played it 2 times, I think, and they've won it both times against Sonics and against NIP, I believe, right? So that's a little bit of a shocker. I mean, I guess, I don't know, M maybe figured them out because they got to see them play on it twice, or Empire finally got exposed on it. M&M's really good on it, whatever the case here. We'll take a look at the round by round really quickly. Just trading back and forth, we see a bunch of defense wins in a row, but this includes the side swap, so 5 defenses, but 3 of them by Empire, 2 of them by M&M, and then Empire and M&M closes it out with 3 defenses in a row, so good on them there. Clean win, and then I guess we'll just check which one around Empire won. It was round 2, so that means M&M, Empire, and then we see M&M with 6 in a row. Big win by them. And yeah, this is points that they maybe not desperately needed, but it keeps this group pretty competitive. Just like all of the groups are pretty competitive except for one team. 2 of the groups, I think, have a team already secured in first place. One group already has a team secured in last place, and then the other group is still a little bit more in flux, I think. And Usus goes crazy, 21-9, could not get shut down, and Nello does pretty well as well. He's been doing pretty well this tournament. I think he was top of the board in maybe the last game, maybe the game before that. And then these guys doing their part as well. Joystick just keeping his head above water in terms of rating, and nobody even went positive in terms of KD on Empire, but pretty good entry on Joystick and Scyther at least, and then even on Always. Shepard and Dan suffer a little bit, but fairly good stats here and good cost, but does it really matter? They sort of got popped. Okay, next one coming up, next match. Liquid versus FaZe. I was sort of hyping this one up, and I don't think it quite lived up to the hype. It was still close maps, but we didn't see any overtime. It was a 2-0, and 57% of the voters here thought it would be Liquid winning, and I think that makes sense. I think Liquid was a little bit more favored, but I wouldn't say it was heavily favored for them. So 7-5, 7-5. Liquid gets 2 rounds. FaZe gets 3 rounds, 4 rounds. 4 rounds? Yeah, 4 rounds. And then we switch back over to a Liquid streak, and then FaZe, Liquid, Liquid. So, right, they had the chance to stop it, and it came down to a 1v1 clutch, but Nesk pulled it out, and then we go to Bank. There were a few confusing rounds on Bank. It's one in particular where I think it was down to like a 2v1. Liquid were attacking, and their last guy was rappelling outside of a window, and one guy jumped out, and then I think the other guy jumped out too or something. So they were like both outside. They did something to put themselves in a position where even if they got the kill, they couldn't defuse the thing. So they just lost. It was weird. Just some miscommunication or misunderstanding or something. So Liquid, Liquid, FaZe, Liquid, FaZe, Liquid, and I could read it out, but I'll just be scrolling through the screen. Doesn't look like there's any big streaks here or anything. It was mostly back and forth, but a Liquid did manage to get ahead in the beginning, which was enough to win them the map, win them the series, and secure themselves first place in their group. So we'll look at that at the end. Soul's coming up pretty big, but not enough to win his team the thing. Bullet doing well as well. Cameraman and Astro suffering a bit. Resets top of his team. I think that's a first. I think that's got to be the first time Nesk or Palu wasn't the top, I think, for Liquid at this event this far, but they're still second and third here. CGG posts something about them breaking some records. I don't even remember what it was, though. It was like each of them have over 100 kills in the event now, but it was also Palu broke like 500 kills between this event and the last SI and the Mexico Major, and it's not even including Sweden because he wasn't there, and maybe even some other record, but anyways, so those are the stats for this game, and let's move on to the next one. Cyclops versus Space Station. This was a crazy one. This is super, super scary, and it's going to look pretty dominant, I suppose, once I actually show the numbers, but if you were watching this one, it was a bit of a heart attack type game, and a big disappointment for the fans of Cyclops, I suppose, because they got pretty close to maybe not winning the whole series, but they certainly got close to winning the first map, and then if we went to the final map, maybe things would have been different, despite the result on the second one. So 3/4 of voters still thought Space Station would take it. Cyclops in that interview mentioned that the two teams that they thought that the best matchup against were Liquid and SSG. They were very close to being Liquid, didn't manage to pull it out. And so here's that other team they thought they would do well against, and they almost did. And okay, so 8-6 and 7-1. Space Station decimated them on Clubhouse, and 8-6. This was quite close, but Cyclops, SSG, Cyclops. A 5-1 half. Another defender-sided Chalet. So this might have been even more shocking if we hadn't just seen the MIBR game go like this, MIBR Navi. But still, historically, it's been an attacker-sided map. So to see Cyclops run up 5 defenses, it seemed like they were going to win this map. Maybe SSG would get a couple rounds, but it seems super likely. And then especially once they won this round, they were up 6-1, and then they just couldn't close it out. And look how many rounds in a row SSG wins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in a row on Chalet to close the thing. So I don't know what it is. Was SSG just monstrously clutch? Was CAG did they just mega choke? I think both. I think winning 7 in a row after being down 6-1 is too crazy of a thing for it to just be one of those two things. It's definitely some amount of both. I don't know which one it's more of. Based on what happened in the Liquid game, it might be more of Cyclops choking. I think there is also some factor of the way Cyclops plays is a little bit wild and unpredictable, and once teams get an understanding of it after they play against it for a certain amount of time, they sort of figure it out. And I guess Space Station maybe just figured it out in the nick of time. And then also, it just ended up being a defender-sided map as well, so 5-1 on each half, but still 7 in a row is crazy, including 1 attacking round in overtime for Space Station. And then if we look at Clubhouse, a 7-1. So these guys went up 6-1, and then they played 15 more rounds and only won 1 of them. That's actually crazy. Are we on Club? Here we go. Okay, Clubhouse. Cyclops gets the first round, and then Space Station gets another 7-round streak. Can you believe it? I think it was the last defense, or rather the last attacking round for Space Station. They were close to winning it. I don't know if it's going to say it here. I want to say it was this round. I'm not 100%, but I think that they were up like 5 versus 2 or something. There was one round where they were up massively and they ended up choking the round. And then when we go to Clubhouse, I think there was like 3 rounds in a row where Space Station pulls off 2v4s or 2v5s, and it might have been just these 3 rounds. It was something. I don't know. You could look back through it. If you want to watch this match, definitely do it. And if you just want to watch some SSG domination, I guess just watch the second map. But if I remember right, there were 3 back-to-back rounds where SSG pulled off like 2v4s or 5s or something insane. And so yeah, I've never seen such a reverse decimation, because again, they got 14 rounds over the course of 15 rounds after being down 6-1 after playing the one side that's generally the better side. Yeah, insane. Okay, so let's look at the stats. Everyone going negative on Cyclops. Black Ray is their top rated player. I don't want to say again. I think he's probably their highest rated player for the event. I'm not 100%, but I think so. He's been doing pretty well, and he was looking really crazy at some points, but they all ended up getting shut down by the end. Anaton was doing really well on the first map. I think he had like 14 kills, and they got like 1 kill in the second map, so big fall off from him. And then we see everyone on Space Station going positive. Bosco still at the bottom here, but a positive rating, and his team getting the solid dub. Hot and Cold went kind of nuts. He's a big part of that big comeback, and I think Skies had his moments. Fultz, Rampage, they all did. They all honestly had big moments. Bosco going positive on the entry, as well as Fultz and Hot and Cold, and Skies, only Rampy going negative. And yeah, I guess that's enough about this match, but this was a banger. All of SSG games have been absolute bangers, so let's move on to the next one. TSM versus Dark Zero. 81% of voters thought it would be TSM taking down Dark Zero, and I think that's not even inflated so much by the whole TSM voter thing, with TSM and Bolo being super popular and all this stuff. Dark Zero hadn't looked good in this event really thus far, and TSM had looked pretty good, but Dark Zero ended up taking them down. We see another intra-regional matchup. We see NA versus NA here, just like we saw EU versus EU in that Empire M&M game earlier. And yeah, this is a bit of a shocker, and especially this last map, Dark Zero 7-2 TSM on Bank. Big shocker. They were absolute overlords on Bank, and the tables turned for them. Dark Zero won Villa, very close with Fair, and then pretty close on Coastline as well, 7-5, not quite in overtime, but let's just take a look at this really quickly. I think it's all pretty back and forth outside of the last map, 1-1, 1-1, then TSM breaks it, gets 2 in a row, and then they stay a little bit ahead, but then we see Dark Zero with a couple in a row to even it out, TSM with 2 in a row, and Dark Zero pushes overtime, but then we see Dark Zero win 2 in a row, and that's a Villa. And then Coastline, it's going to be the same sort of thing, isn't it? TSM gets up 3-1, but then Dark Zero, TSM, Dark Zero, TSM, Dark Zero, Dark Zero, and then TSM. And now they're on 6-5, and they win one more to make it a 7-5 victory. Achieve got a 1v1 clutch, close out the map. And then we go to Bank, and we see Dark Zero, a flawless half. And they were running up rounds, like 2, 3, 4. I was like, I mean, whatever, it's Bank. It's really attacker-sided. TSM's going to get 1 or 2 defenses, and then they're just like going to match what Dark Zero does. I was expecting at least like a 5-1 attacking half, and it was looking like they're on track to do it, but then they got 1v4 clutched by NJR. He was just like hiding out somewhere, and he just downed the guy that was planting, and time ran out, and they won. So TSM was starting to build momentum. It was looking scary. They won 2 in a row, and if they just had NJR figured out where he was, if they had stopped him from stopping the plant, they would have been halfway to the comeback already. But yeah, there's TSM going down, and that is one of the only other teams that was undefeated. Now, they were before the series one of the 2 teams in the tournament left that hadn't dropped a map, and now they've dropped a map. And with the Empire loss as well, the only undefeated teams left in the tournament are Liquid and Damwon, and the only team undefeated on maps is Damwon because Liquid's lost 1 map. Okay, so Achieved, Merc, Bolo, Chala, all really tightly clustered here, and Geo just a little bit behind. And then NJR, the hero of this series, probably the hero of their tournament thus far, or at least their best statistical player. Canadian did pretty well here, and then Pamazoo, Hyper, Eclipse, all pretty tightly clustered, all within a 0.1 range. So good for Dark Zero, a little bit of a comeback. They were looking like one of the absolute worst teams in the tournament, but now they're keeping it pretty competitive. When we look at the thing, I'm pretty sure they can't get first place in their group, but they can get, second, third, or fourth, with BDS being the team already eliminated from this group, and very sad. But I'm sure most of you knew that. Okay, let's move on to the next game. BDS versus Elevate was the final game of the day, and it's also BDS's final game in the tournament. They don't play tomorrow in the group stage. This was their last game of the group stage, and they're already guaranteed last place in their group. And this is just super unfortunate for BDS. Nobody had them going out in groups. A lot of people, I think, had them going pretty deep into the tournament, and then some people even thought that they would win the tournament, maybe even themselves included. They thought that they were in pretty good form, and then this whole thing happened with Rafal, and the coach had to step in, and by the time Rafal got back in, their momentum was already killed, and it was too late. And maybe even if the games had been in a different order, or if for some reason Rafal could have played the first 2 games versus the last 2 games, they might have gotten enough points, but regardless, they are guaranteed out of the tournament. But going into this game, they weren't yet out of the tournament, so they had the potential, depending on what happened in Dark Zero's game that was happening at the same time, and then also, I suppose, the games tomorrow, because Elevate, everyone else in this group still had another game to play after today. So depending on what happened in those games, and then also this game and the Dark Zero game today, BDS still had some amount of potential to pass Elevate and Dark Zero. As soon as they lost this first map, which they did, BDS loses the first map in the series. When they lost that to Elevate, they could no longer pass Elevate in the standings. And then once that happened, and then Dark Zero won the first map in their series, then they couldn't pass Dark Zero either. I suppose as they were playing the series, they probably didn't know what was going on in the Dark Zero series, so they still had some hope that Dark Zero got 2-0'd today and tomorrow. But little did they know that as soon as they lost this map to Elevate, and that happened in the other series, then their chances were done. The community thought that they were going to win, and I think the community voted for BDS in all of their games except for the TSM one, so I suppose the community got that one right, and then they got this one right as well. Finally, they voted for BDS and got it right. 80% is probably a bit generous. I guess maybe the community thought that finally BDS has their full roster back, and they even have a whole match under their belt with Rafal in the tournament, and they're just a better team than Elevate. Bunch of reasons. I think it still makes sense, but just looking at the record, you wouldn't vote for BDS. But anyways, enough about that. They take them down 2-1. Really decisive win for Elevate on Clubhouse. I don't know if BDS was just still adjusting even into this match, and then finally they got the hang of things, or Elevate's really good on Clubhouse, whatever the deal is. But they got smoked there, and then BDS smokes them almost as hard right back on Cafe, and then a 7-5 close-ish game on Chalet. And these two are just pretty decisive, so let's look at the rounds really quickly for this one. Elevate gets off to a quick start, 2 in a row, and then BDS answers back with 3 of their own. Elevate gets 1 more to make it a 3-3-half, and then we see a couple from BDS. We see 1 from Elevate, and then 1 more from BDS going up on a match point. Elevate keeps themselves alive and goes into the 12th round and loses it. BDS shuts them down, doesn't let it go to overtime, and they take that series 2-1. So at least they have a win under their belt at SI, if nothing else, right? Looking at the stats, Brede here, 1.21 rating. Brede ended up on top of his team in all 4 of the games that they played. Super impressive, and just another notch on the belt of Brede. Another claim to the best support player in the world. Let me know if you actually think he is. I think he might be. I think it's pretty close. He's up there with the likes of like Souls and Bosco and whatnot. And Bosco hasn't been hot as of late, but let me know who you think the number 1 support players. Shaiko and Renchi are doing okay. Rafal and LM's not doing too well, but not doing too terribly. And then Napew a little bit above average rating and positive on KD, but nobody else getting a positive rating or KD on Elevate. But still, pretty tight ratings within the game. If you ignore Brede, everyone's between 0.8 and 1.1. So, nice and competitive. You like to see it. And all right, I suppose that's enough on this game. Let's take a look at the standings at the end of the day, and then we'll look at some player stats and map stats, and we'll call it a day. All right, we'll start with Group A, and you might notice that the screen is dark. Somebody in my comments, an individual by the name of Hamster Hawk, recommended that I get this plugin called Dark Reader, and it makes the whole thing dark. I had an extension that put me into dark mode, but it also negated some of the colors, which I thought were sort of important for information. So this one actually does not do that, so I'll be able to use it. Very nice for everybody involved. Okay, so there's a lot of scenarios and hypotheticals and all this stuff, and I'm not going to mention all of them, but I'll say the placements that each team can still get, and maybe I'll talk about a few of the potential scenarios. All right, Ninjas in Pajamas are guaranteed top 3 in this group, so they are guaranteed to be seeded into the upper bracket. They can get 3rd, 2nd, which will put them into the 1st round of the upper bracket, or they can get 1st, which will get them into the 2nd round automatically of upper bracket. They are, I guess, the most likely, but they are the one team that doesn't play another game, so there is potential for some of the teams to pass them. Not Sandbox and not Sonic. Sonics can tie them on points, but because they have the head-to-head versus Sonics, they can't pass them. M&M can get anywhere from 1st to 4th. Empire can get from 1st to 4th as well. Sonics can get from 2nd to 5th. So, like I said, they can't pass Ninjas, but they can pass everybody else. And then Sandbox can be between 3rd and 5th at the end. So things are definitely looking the worst for Sandbox at the moment, being 2 points behind the next team. All 4 of these teams are playing. And it's Empire versus Sandbox, and it's Sonics versus M&M for the final day. So Sandbox, if they beat Empire 2-0, they'll get 3 points, and they'll have the head-to-head over Empire, putting them above them. And then if Sonics gets no more points, that is, they lose 2-0, then Sandbox will be above Sonics as well. Sonics, if they get 1 more point, is guaranteed above Sandbox because they have the head-to-head against them. And I think that pretty well does it for this group. Let's go to Group B. Group B, the group of death. Liquid is the team that will not be playing on the last day, but they've already secured their 1st place spot. Nobody can even get close, of course. They're on 11 points, and the closest anyone else can get is Space Station on 8 points if they win 2-0 in their last game. So pretty tight affair here, 5, 4, and 3, and then Cyclops at the bottom, but they're not guaranteed out or anything. Liquid guaranteed 1st. SSG can get between 2nd and 4th, so they're the only other one in the group that's guaranteed to go through. Cyclops can still knock out one of the other teams in some sort of scenarios. FaZe can get between 2 and 5th. Rogue can also get between 2 and 5th, and Cyclops can get 3rd, 4th, or 5th. So Cyclops can get above FaZe and Rogue, and of course not above SSG, because if you look at the points, we see Cyclops versus FaZe, so Cyclops needs to get a 2-0 against FaZe to pass them, and then because Rogue defeated Cyclops, if Rogue gets 1 more point, then they are guaranteed to be above Cyclops. So for them to make it into 3rd place and to get into the upper bracket, the only way that's going to happen is if they 2-0 and Rogue loses 2-0 to SSG. Okay. And I think that's all of the important scenarios for this group, right? And we'll take a look at the next one. In Group C, we have 4 teams guaranteed to go through, and 1 team is already eliminated. That's BDS. They already played all 4 of their games, so they can't get any more points to pass anybody up. TSM, Furia, Elevate, and Dark Zero, all of them within 3 points. And not every team can get any position, but TSM can get first through third, Furia can get first through fourth, Elevate can get first through fourth, and DZ can get second through fourth. So they can't make it to the top because they can get above TSM because they now have the head-to-head versus TSM. But all right, so say Dark Zero beats Furia 3-0, that puts them above Furia in points and puts them above TSM based on tiebreaker. But then we have to also see TSM versus Elevate, and the only way for neither of them to pass them in points, so Elevate would have to get all 3 points. That would put them on 7 and TSM on 7, but Elevate has the head-to-head against Dark Zero, which would put them above. So Elevate would have to get below 3 points, but that means TSM gets at least 1 point, and that means TSM passes Dark Zero. So no way for Dark Zero to get first, but they can still get second or third or fourth for that matter. But they can still make it into that upper bracket, and really anything can happen. These will be 2 really tense games. All right, and let's go to the final group. And finally, Group D, D for Damwon Kia. They are on the top of their group no matter what. They already have 9 points. The next highest team potentially could be 7 points, and I suppose 2 teams could have 7 by the end of it, but it doesn't really matter to them. They are still playing, so they can still influence things. They might, for their pride, want to play their hearts out. They could end the group stage as the only team that doesn't drop a map, but I suppose it's probably in their best interest to hide as much as possible, save their energy as much as possible. I just don't know what their prerogative is going to be in that regard. Definitely for, who do they play against? Navi. Navi is really hoping that they are holding pulling their punches, because Navi needs the points. And right, so this is the most interesting group because, of course, they're the most tightly packed outside of the top. So 4, 4, 4, and 3. It's so close. Team 1 will not be playing, so even though they are currently second place in the group, they are the worst off, I'd say. I mean, then, or MIBR, but Oxygen and Navi are just definitely better than Team 1 in the moment, because neither of them have the head-to-head against Team 1, but they both have a whole nother game to play, so potential for up to 3 more points, and just 1 more point is all they need to get above Team 1. So, right, Damwon Kia, once again, secured into first place. Team 1 can get between 3rd and 5th. Like I said, they can't. They're in the worst position. They will guaranteed be passed by somebody, because somebody will get points. And then the other 3 teams can get anywhere between 2nd and 5th. So Auction, Navi, MIBR, they can end up anywhere except for first place. So that's really crazy to see. So why can't Team 1 get 2nd place? Because MIBR has the head-to-head over them. So if they get at least 1 point, they will pass Team 1. And then Oxygen and Navi also, they don't have the head-to-head over them, but if they get at least 1 point, then they'll pass them. So the best case scenario for Team 1 is to just get passed by 1 team, and that would involve Damwon beating Navi 2-0, which, I mean, if Damwon's playing at full power, at full force, that's pretty likely to happen. But, I mean, we'll have to see if Damwon's giving some stuff up, then Navi can pass them. So, right, Damwon needs to beat Navi 2-0, and then also Oxygen versus Empire, they need either team to 2-0 the other one. I mean, one of them's going to pass them, but if it's a 2-1 for either team, they're both going to pass them. So that's really bad. So there's a lot of scenarios where Team 1 gets knocked out here. If Oxygen, MIBR 2-1 go 2-1 either way, then Navi just needs 1 point and they'll be out. And then, so I guess really what Team 1 wants to happen more than anything is for Oxygen or MIBR to 2-0. One of them to 2-0 the other, because that'll just guarantee they're still in. But it's not looking too good for Team 1, because, yeah, it's pretty likely that they're going to get 4th or 5th. We'll just have to see. A lot of it, again, depends on Damwon. So that MIBR versus Oxygen one is going to be really tense. And then I suppose also the Navi versus Damwon, because we'll have to see. Maybe Navi can pull out an upset against Damwon, but regardless, they're going to be playing their heart out because they can use all the points that they could get. So it turns out, even though it seemed like this group was pretty definitive, pretty early on, it seemed like Damwon and Oxygen were just above everybody else. And then Team 1 were maybe middle echelon, along with perhaps MIBR and Navi were definitive bottom. But now we have MIBR at the bottom, and then these 3 teams all tied on points, and Damwon still, retains clear first place. And okay, I guess that does that for the standings, and we'll just quickly look at the player and map stats to close things out. Finally, Nesk has taken over all of the first 4 categories: rating, KD, entry, and cost. He's not here on clutches. Maybe he has some number, but he's not here in the top 5. And then, of course, you wouldn't expect the same guy with all of these numbers to have very many plants. Maybe got 1 or 2 on the off chance, but nowhere near the top. So top of the rating, pretty close behind is Grixer, though. And then KD, just head and shoulders above everyone else. Palu, the next closest behind, and outside of his team, next closest being Grixer as well. Entry, a decent bit above Alamau, Fultz, Merc going down, and then Cost, a little bit above Rexen, Palu, Bride, Reset. So absolute king of the tournament thus far. We'll have to see if he can get shut down, if Liquid can get upset, but at the moment, it's just, I mean, it's just Liquid and Damwon that look by far the best, and we'll have to see if anyone else from the groups emerges as looking pretty good after the final day. Maybe somebody will have a really, really good performance. Maybe Dark Zero will continue their upward trend. We'll have to see. Woogieman, big clutch master, absolute fiend of the tournament, along with Nesk and Grixer, I think, at the moment, and Palu, right? And we'll look at the full stats just really briefly. So Nesk, Grixer, Woogieman, Palu, Rexen, a lot of the players that we see in high up in the categories. And JR been absolutely clutch for his team, and especially in that last round, he's right here in that third clutch he just got. That 1v4 clutch secured his team the game, killed the momentum of TSM, absolutely massive. And then Philippe Hawk's been really good for MIBR, and then just going down the line, a lot of other really good players. And I guess we'll just glance at the bottom while I'm at it. And yeah, Rips staying at the bottom, that's tough. He has one more game at least to bring that number up, and then, I mean, maybe Rogue will make it out of groups and then he can further improve. But Suzuki and Gatorada really low down here. Cyclops got pretty close to some wins, but well, they didn't actually end up getting any wins. So they got some map wins, just not any series wins, right? Didn't they lose? Lost to Liquid and Space Station and Rogue, so yeah, winless at the moment. They might be the only team. Maybe I'll put it at the bottom of the screen if they're the only team. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then the map stats. These have changed a little bit. We now see Clubhouse a lot closer to 50%. This is at 40% before the day. Bank takes over the 40%, the most attacker sided, and then most defender sided is actually Chalet. Quite interesting. This was, I think, at like 51% for defenders before, and now, and all of these sites were at 50, even 50-50, except for Wine Cellar was at 57 or whatever it was, and it continues to be the most defended, and it's now not even the least played. Master Office is the least played, which used to be the most played, so maybe teams are just figuring out how to defend Wine Cellar. I wasn't actually watching that closely on a lot of the Wine Cellar rounds, so I might have to review why it's getting more defensible. I swear that site's still bad, but something funky's brewing here. Right, Clubhouse bar stage has been played quite a lot, but it remains pretty bad. Maybe you know, maybe there's still just a little bit more sauce teams need to discover to make that work. But Cash CC and Master Gym, their percentages I think both came up by some amount. And then Coastline, Penthouse D are looking pretty good, even though it's only been defended 10 times, so could be just a bit of an anomaly. And then the other three sites remain at you know, around 40%, what you'd expect from Coastline defense. Bank, everything below 50%. Living Library, 1 out of 10 wins, so it got a couple more plays and a couple more losses. Everything else above 50. And then Oregon, almost everything above 50 except for Kitchen Dining. Meeting Hall continues to be better than Kitchen Dining, more played than Kitchen Dining, as it should be, as it would be. And then Cafe just slightly attacker sided, with Mining Dining being heavily in the defender's favor, but if it had been played as many times as the other side, probably that percentage would have gone down. And right, I hope, well, I don't know how long this video actually ended up being until I edit it, but I hope it's shorter because, well, I tried to make it shorter. So that's gonna do it. A lot of really tense games coming up in the last day. I mean, every single match matters. Some of the matches don't actually matter for one of the teams, and I think the only one that's true for is the Damwon not mattering for Damwon, right? Every other match matters for at least, every other match should matter for both of the teams, unless something happens in the same group before that, but the games usually run at the same time. Okay, so, right, with all that being said, I will catch you in the next video.